Hello, my name is Pastor Lee Rokoltz, Ministerial Director for the I-Missouri Conference. In September, we kicked off a prayer initiative in which we asked members of the I-Missouri Conference that every month we would have a specific week to pray for a specific ministry within our field. So in September, we started with Adventist education, asking members to specifically pray for Sunnydale Academy and our elementary schools. And I want to say thank you to all of you that spent that week specifically praying for our students and our staff of our academy and elementary schools. And no doubt you are continuing those prayers. October, throughout the United States and other countries, is known as Clergy Appreciation Month. And I'm going to ask you from October 4th to October 10th to specifically pray for pastors and their families. Growing up, sitting in a local Seventh-day Adventist church with my parents and family and listening to a pastor preach a sermon, I had a faulty view of pastors. I saw them as superhuman, as individuals that were perfect and must have had a relationship with God that nobody else could have. The reality is none of those things are true. We all have the opportunity to have the same relationship with Jesus Christ. And the reality is we as pastors are not perfect. I never would have imagined as a young boy that God would call me into full-time pastoral ministry. But I am very grateful for the churches that I had the opportunity to serve. But the reality is I was not perfect and I made mistakes. And no doubt in my mind that the devil wants to attack churches and pastors because he wants to stop the mission of the church. So there's a couple things I'm going to ask you to do. Number one, I'd like you to pray and have a special emphasis of praying for your own local pastor. Pray for all the pastors in the I-Missouri Conference and the North American Division. But I'd ask you to pray for pastors all around the world in three areas. Number one, that God would continue to grow them as spiritual individuals and help them in their leadership. I would also ask you to pray for their mental health. Pastors, like anyone else, can face discouragement. They can face depression. And even though pastors spend a lot of time working with churches and minister to people, pastors can feel a sense of loneliness. So I would ask you to pray for your pastor, his spouse, and his children, that God would help them in their mental health. But I would also ask you to pray for their physical well-being. Right now, we have a teenager of a pastoral couple that is receiving treatment for cancer. We have and have had in the past pastors and spouses and children face a variety of major physical issues in their life. And now more than ever, your pastors need your prayers for their physical health, for their mental health, and for their spiritual health. And so I'm going to ask you on October 4th through October 10th to spend your days that week and the weeks after praying for your pastor. You'll receive a bulletin insert as well as a PowerPoint slide that can be shown in your churches, reminding you of the date and the things to pray for. But I would also ask that the pastor not have to make this announcement. I would ask that an elder or another platform leader, as this is being announced in church, or talked about in board meetings or throughout your church, that somebody in the church would take the lead on encouraging the members of every individual church to pray for your local pastor and his family. I just want to thank you as the ministerial director of this conference in advance for your prayers that you will pray specifically during that first week in October. Thank you, and God bless.